This is the only email marketing design course you'll ever need, and it's completely free. Ever since I started my agency 4 years ago, I still have not found a single resource on email design that wasn't behind a $1,000 paywall. So today, I'm changing that for good and revealing the secrets to beautiful, high-converting email designs completely free of charge. These aren't just some random theories either. Every single piece of information I'm about to give you has been battle tested through the process of generating over $45 million in email and SMS sales for over 30 7- and 8-figure e-commerce brands. Some of these brands you might have seen on Shark Tank with investors like Mark Cuban, Peter Jones, and even Lori Greiner, and other 7- and 8-figure brands that completely dominate their niche. So in this course, I'm going to show you everything from how to structure high converting emails, graphic design fundamentals, including color theory, visual hierarchy, and typography, how to use GIFs and interactive elements in your emails to boost engagement, recent trends in email design so you can stay up to date with the latest in e-commerce, and finally, a live design session with me in Figma where we will actually design an email together. By the time you're done going through this course, you'll be completely equipped to design your own emails, run your own email marketing, and properly take advantage of the most cost-effective revenue channel in e-commerce in 2025. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So if you're watching this right now, you probably want to design better emails, but you might not know why it's beneficial in the first place. So let me walk you through this, because knowing is genuinely half the battle. And once you understand why it's important, you'll understand more of what I'm explaining later. A few of the most important reasons why you want to have your emails looking great include the revenue impact. Better looking emails are always going to perform better than ugly ones. For example, which email do you think would produce higher revenue? This one or this one? Number 2, differentiation. In a sea of clones where everyone's competing, having great looking emails and branding is going to set your brand apart. Number 3, it's going to engage your list better. Pretend you're at home reading your brand's emails. Would you be more engaged if the emails look great, like this one on screen, or be less engaged if the emails look like this? Also, based on the look of these two emails, which brand would you be more likely to open more emails of in the future? Probably the better looking one. Number 4, it's going to create more authority. When your emails look the part, it's going to convey professionalism to your reader. This will increase your brand's authority and in turn, increase trust with your audience. And number 5, your branding. If your ads, your emails, and your website all look great and cohesive, it's really going to strengthen your brand's perception in the reader's eyes. Those are 5 of the reasons why I deem email design important. Now, before we jump into the design process, let's look at why a ridiculous number of e-commerce stores get email design wrong. But here's the thing, a lot of their mistakes are actually really easy to fix. So let's look through some of the common mistakes. So if you're making them, you can iron them out. The first one I see is cluttered layouts. You definitely don't want a bunch of things going on in your email. The more simple, short, sweet, and direct it is, the better it's going to perform. You definitely want to have some sort of white space in your email. This is because it'll help guide your reader's eye through the rest of the email and not be distracted by a million things going on. Number 2, a bunch of weak CTAs. If you want to improve your click rates in emails, make your buttons bigger, make sure they contrast with the background of your email, and also make them clear and direct. And most important thing, don't forget to include a button above the fold in your email banner. We'll touch on that more later in this video. Unreadable fonts. Don't include fonts like these in your emails. They're way too hard to read and hard to understand. Instead, we try to opt for one sans serif font and one serif font. Another thing here, the email designs just look flat out bad. Either the design work isn't very good or the brand is still designing their emails in Klaviyo. In 2025 and beyond, you should definitely be using some sort of design platform for your emails. And there's really no reason for your designs not to be looking pretty decent. I'm going to show you how to do that later in this video, but definitely you want to use some sort of design platform like Figma, Photoshop, or Illustrator to go ahead and get the most amount of design work you can get out of your emails. And last, one of the most common mistakes I see is that the emails aren't structured with the layouts for conversion. You want your emails to follow a certain framework so you can maximize your performance. Okay, real quick, before we continue, if you really want to accelerate how fast your email designs improve, we've made a 1000 email swipe file you can use for inspiration. This swipe file has absolutely everything. It's broken up by brand category, for example, supplement campaigns, sport campaigns, clothing campaigns, and even more. You'll also see different types of emails. For example, back in stock emails, new rivals emails, bestseller emails, and everything you can possibly need. Not to mention, there are also a bunch of flow templates you can go ahead and copy and paste and put them into your flows. A lot of these examples are the same email templates me and my team have used over the past 4 years to generate over $45 million in email and SMS sales for our clients. If you want to download that swipe file, it's down below in the description. Go ahead and claim it and improve your email designs ASAP. Okay, so now you know how to avoid those mistakes. Now let's focus on the 3 key components that we use to ensure great email designs. The 3 keys are clarity, scannability, and aesthetic. Let me break down each one and show you exactly what I mean. We'll start off with clarity. Readers decide within 2 to 4 seconds if they're going to engage with the rest of your message. So if they can't understand your message that you're trying to convey or what you're showing them, then they're going to simply click off your email. Confusion leads to drop-offs. Instead, how to avoid this is number 1, focus on one single thing per email. So for example, if you're talking about new rivals, like this Nike example, only focus on new rivals in the email. If Nike started including some blog post or some other thing that was going on, it wouldn't make sense for the email and it would distract the reader from the purpose of why you're emailing them, which is to show new arrivals. Next, you want to maintain a clear hierarchy of importance throughout the email. So just a good framework to follow is a strong headline, a strong call to action, and an image to go along with it, some body text further explaining what you're talking about, but not too much body text because people aren't going to read it. And then have the meat and bones of the email, which could be products, product categories, reviews, infographics, or anything else to give people an actual reason to buy. If you want to test if your emails are clear, show an example of one of your emails to someone who isn't familiar with the brand. Ask them very simply within 5 seconds of viewing the email if they understand what the point of the email is. As you can see in this Nike email, there's absolutely no ambiguity. You can see it by the big headline just dropped. They're talking about new arrivals. Instantly in the reader's head, they know, okay, there's going to be new arrivals from Nike. If I'm a big Nike fan, I'm definitely looking throughout the rest of that email and seeing what they got. Okay, moving on. Number 2, scannability. I hate to break it to you, but in 2025 and beyond, people aren't reading your emails. Instead, they're scanning and skimming them. So what you want to do is follow like an 80-20 rule. You want to have more visuals than text. Now, I don't mean everything in your email has to be designed, but just think of this. Instead of having a long paragraph that describes, let's say, a product benefit, you can make it a lot more digestible for the reader if you just display that information in an infographic, for example. Not only is it more engaging, it's also going to help people consume more of your content. Because, for example, if I was reading this email with a long block of text, I'm just simply not going to read it. I'm going to click off. I'm going to get bored. So here are some keys to keep your email scannable. Number 1, if you're using body text, simply use line breaks to break it up and make it easier to read. So instead of this, it's going to look like this. You also want to use a lot of white space. As I mentioned before, if you've got too much stuff going on, people aren't really going to see what you're talking about. Instead, they'll be distracted and they won't actually understand the main point of the email. You also want to break your text up into different sizes. Here's a great example with this email over here. Ideally, you have the headline be the most important thing you're talking about. The subheader or pre-header would look a little different, a little bit smaller, maybe a different font, potentially even less bold, and it would probably build on what you said in the header. When you structure your emails like this, it makes it so much easier for the readers at home to actually understand what you're trying to convey, and it doesn't exert their mental bandwidth. There are certain layouts that are more conducive to getting people to read more. For example, the Z pattern layout is great as it guides your eye naturally through the course of the entire email. And the last key I'm about to talk about is going to be aesthetic. So we all know a brand or two that we subscribe to, that when we get their emails, we always open them and we think, man, I wish my emails look like this. For me, I personally love the branding of brands like Manscaped, Cuts Clothing, and 8 Sleep. Whenever I see one of their emails, I get inspired to do something similar for one of our clients. For you, that might be a competitor, it might be a brand you'd like to shop at, or it just might be one brand that you aspire to look like. Notice how all of these brands always have a very beautiful aesthetic. That's what we want to build here for your brand. We'll dive into more on exactly how to do that later in this video. But in the meantime, as long as you're using your correct brand fonts, colors, and images, your email should look pretty decent. Okay, so those are the 3 keys. Now you actually know what to look for in a great email design. Let's go ahead and look at some of the tools and workflows that we use in order to build out these emails. So for tools, I'll quickly rattle them off here. You want to choose a good design platform. Honestly, this completely up to you and what your workflow looks like. Personally, for me and my agency, we love to use Figma. It's really simple, it's clean, it's easy to use. All our clients can get used to it within a matter of days, and it's very good for collaborating. You, on the other hand, might use Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, or anywhere else you can design your own emails, as long as it's not within Klaviyo. My advice is to do whatever works best for you, but if you're still choosing an option, try to go with Figma. It's very easy for you and everyone on your team to go in, make comments, suggestions, edits, and it's just very easy to use. If you're designing an email and you need to remove the background from one of your images, I'd recommend this website, remove.bg. Super simple, clean, and easy to use. Go ahead and try it out. An alternative to this is also Canva Pro if you have a subscription. If you want to create a GIF, I recommend easygif.com. Super easy to go ahead and make a GIF, completely free, and the website isn't going to give you any issues. Now, when you're done designing the email and you want to build it in Klaviyo, you want to go ahead and compress the file size. You can do this on a website like squoosh.app, and what it's going to do is help that email load a lot faster in your recipient's inbox, so they're not waiting a second or two or even more for the email to load. Okay, now, if you're ever looking for a font, you can always get the Chrome extension called Fonts Ninja, and really simply, you're just going to be able to go ahead and click the button at the top of your screen, and it's going to show you the fonts for that brand's website. Same thing goes with the Chrome extension called Colorzilla. I love this one. It's very easy to go ahead and find your brand's specific color palette. Those are the fundamental tools you'll want to use for your email designs. Now let's look at the optimal workflow to actually get those email designs built. This is going to be a very simple 3-step process. It's going to be first copy and ideation, then your design, and then building out in Klaviyo. Each of these 3 components are going to be very important. When you have a design-based email, most people just think of the actual design component, but each of these three components here are going to be equally important. Let's start off with copy and ideation. So before you or any designer on your team goes ahead and actually designs the email, they need to know what to include in it. This might include copy, design notes, any images, or anything else they might need to know. So ideally, we should lay this out in some sort of document for them. Here's an example of what I would recommend. Simply just pop open a Google Doc and start outlining the copy in your email in the format that it should be displayed. For example, if you're launching a new product, let's say they're called the ABC sneakers. Your headline probably will mention ABC sneakers, but don't forget, you also need to mention that it's new, of course. So maybe you include a pre-headline above that says introducing our new ABC sneakers. And when you have the pre-header and header there in the document, where it's very easy for the designer to follow, they're going to know exactly what to do. This is going to reduce the logistic complexity of actually designing these emails and not having a lot of revisions going back and forth. Here's what the entire email might look like if we put it all together. So you can see, if I'm just reading this, I kind of get an idea of how it should be laid out, especially if I'm a designer. Next, you want to move on to the design. We'll just use the example of Figma for this video, but you can do this in any software. Just set up a 600 width frame, extend it as far out as you want, start dragging in some components you'll want your brand to use, including some buttons, your fonts for your header, subheaders, your text, any images, your logo, product layouts. You get what I'm talking about. Then once you go ahead and start designing your email, you can go ahead and start building it in Klaviyo. When you're building it in Klaviyo, remember this quick process. Slice your email into image sections and export it at 2x its normal size. Then go to an app like Squoosh and compress the file size to about 90% of the current quality. Then go to Klaviyo and go to the drag and drop editor. Start dragging in all your new image slices after they've been compressed. Now you want to add links, but don't add links to every image. Only add links to where people are actually going to click, including buttons and product images. And don't forget to include alt text describing what the image is about if someone doesn't have their images turned on in their inbox. And now you're set. That's how you build an email in Klaviyo. Okay, so now we're here in Figma and we're going to start building out our first email design. Now for the actual email design, I'm going to be replicating what we have here already in Figma. So this is a design that one of our designers on our team actually put together for this video. So you can see it looks much better than what I could do on my own. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll try to break it down section by section and start building out this email from scratch. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do is actually to build the frame that the email is built on. So what I'm going to do is just click F on my keyboard and then I'm going to click down on the screen. Now it'll populate a small frame like that. I want to change the width to be 600. And then the height to be, let's just say 3000. And then we can extend it if needed or shorten it if needed. Now we have the actual email background set. We need to start getting the components that we'll use in this email. So what I'm going to do is very simply start breaking up some of the components over here, and then we can drag and drop them into our new email to speed up the process. Okay, so now we have some of the basic components of the email on the right over here. And the beauty of this is that you can just start dragging and dropping it into the actual email to save you from having to like redo them all the time. So the first thing that we want to do is start with the email banner. I'm going to drag it in over here, and then I'm just going to wait until it selects. You'll see when it goes blue over here on the sides, that's when it selects and it actually enters the email frame. So I'm going to make sure it's centered over here. I'm going to bring it up and make sure that I see the red line that will appear. And that basically means that it snaps into place as the top of the frame. See, we'll do it one more time. There you go. Perfect. So now that fits perfectly, the next thing we want to do, drag the logo in. So we're going to keep it right over there. It looks about right. Next thing is going to be some text. So we have text over here in the top right of the banner. So I'm going to go and drag this in here. What does it say? A wild new print is coming. Members shop first. Wild new print is coming. Members shop first. Disregard the spelling inconsistencies. That looks about right, but it looks like the font is just too big. So here's how to switch the font. You want to come down here, the font size. You see it under typography. It's 12. So we want to make this 12 as well. Perfect. And now what I can also do is make this right justified like that, just so it's a little bit easier to line up like that at the right side of the email. Great, that's looking okay. But as you can see at the top of this email, it looks darker than over here. So if we actually see what's going on, there is a gradient. So the gradient, very simply, is just casting almost like a shadow over the person's face. So it adds kind of like a nice effect and makes it easier to read the white lettering on there. So very simply, this is how you do it. Click R on your keyboard. Now you just want to click down. So now we have a rectangle or a square actually, and we're going to make it the same size as like the top half of the email here. Now what I want to do is change the color to black because we want a black gradient. And then over here, we have 4 options. This is for a solid fill. This is for a gradient, image, and then a video. So over here under gradients, you just want to change the bottom one to black as well. And then we can toggle the opacity for each of these. So I'm going to make the opacity 0 for the bottom one. And as you can see, it's already getting better. And we need to make the overall opacity a little bit lighter as well. So I'm going to put it at 50. And I believe that's the exact same thing that went on here. So that looks a little bit better. Now we want to bring this to the front. So I'm just going to select this. And then now I selected the layer. I'm going to click bring to front. And it's going to bring it to front. I will also do the same for the Lululemon logo over here. So wait until it selects it. And then there you go. So hopefully, as you can see, I'm doing a lot of stuff pretty quickly here, but I want to make sure I get through everything you can basically need to know inside a basic Figma email design. Next, we need to go ahead and fill out the banner. So I'm going to drag this text over here. I'm also going to drag the body copy in there as well. So I believe we were using this as the body copy. I'm going to switch the justification, keep it there. I'll switch it to a placeholder text for now. And then finally, we want to add a button. So let me throw the button in there and voila, there you go. So now we need to start putting in the actual text. So let's start writing it. Day drift selection. Now we want to use our arrow keys to start pushing this upwards. If you want to go a little bit faster, try holding shift and then click your arrow keys. And now if you remember from before, we want to increase the size of this font. So over here it's 16, over here it is 12. So I'm going to increase that. And then I'm going to get the same copy that's there in here. I'm going to extend this, and that's looking a lot better already. So now I'm going to put a period at the end. And the next thing we have to do is to make this bold and add a trademark. So trademark is easy, option 2, I believe. And then we want to make it bold. So we're going to play with the font weight here. We'll make it bold or semi-bold, whatever looks better. Once again, not enough contrast on the bottom. So what we can very simply do is copy and paste this. So all I did was select it and then I pressed copy and then paste. And now I'm just going to flip it vertically and extend it a little bit. And there you go. That's the banner. Even me, who's not the greatest designer, can still use some of the basic stuff that I'm talking about in Figma now to make a pretty decent design, even though I know it's not exact. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next part of the email. So we have some text over here and then some images. So I need to go and grab this text. We're going to try doing it a little bit differently this time. Let me just first see what the font is. It's called Graphic Trial. So I'm going to click T on my keyboard and then I can write out day drift and then TM, move it to the top right. Also going to introduce a ruler. So you can see me over here on the left side, drag this out. And there you go. We have a ruler now. So now we can make sure everything is aligned. The next thing we want to do is write high, rise, trouser, tall. What's the font on this? 37.8. We'll just do 38 for simplicity. Good. Now some text underneath. Pull on waist for ease, pleats and of. Great. So now you can see it's extending. All I'm going to do, drag it in like this. Obviously, that's not the right font. So let's go see what this one is here. Graphic Trial regular 16. Let's make it regular 16. And there you go. Now the images. So this is something that we haven't looked at yet. I'm going to go and grab the images. When you're making your email design, you should have your images prepared in advance. So it's a little bit easier when you get into Figma like I'm doing now. There you go. There's your images. And now we want to include the button. Instead of me dragging the button, I'm going to show you how to create it. So all I did was just click R to open up a rectangle. And then I dragged out the dimensions. Now let me bring this over here so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I want to make this look like this. So let me bring it in a little bit more. Height looks just about okay. Now I need to toggle the corner radius. So I'm going to try to set it to about 5. See how that looks? That looks okay to me. And then finally, we need the text that goes over it. What text is this? The graphic trial again. And then shop now. Perfect. And then finally, you want to change the color. So we'll use the eyedropper tool and do that. Perfect. So I'm going to make this a group. Groupings are great because you're able to put things together and then drag them in one piece. So for example, a button, this should be in one piece, right? Because the text doesn't really make sense on its own and neither does just the rectangle. So we can make it a group by clicking Command G on Mac or by double clicking and selecting group over here or ungroup, see, and we're going to drag this up. Perfect. Now, what I wanted to do is to start putting the actual infographic text on the images. So I'm going to go and grab them over here. And in terms of this line over here, it's going to be pretty simple. All you're going to want to do is click L on your keyboard and then drag a line. You want to make the angle 0 degrees. And then on one end, you want to do this. We'll do a circle arrow for now. Circle. You can do a diamond like the example. And you can make this a little bit bigger. We'll keep it like this actually. And then finally, you want another one that goes like this. You can kind of play with it in terms of the size. So I can do this, make it a little smaller, and do this over here. And same thing over here. I can simply drag this across and maybe even flip it, move the text over, and there you go. Great. So now let's move on to the next section of this email. It's going to be this section over here. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do in this section is going to be the text as usual, just because it's the easiest. So I'm going to bring this here and then I'm going to change it to a look so refined. Now, in terms of the copy, we'll bring this down here as well. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is add the swatches over here. I'm a big fan of including swatches in emails, especially if you're a clothing brand, because if you're even remotely interested in the product, you could just be even more interested or more inclined to buy by seeing the different colors it comes in. Like for example, you might see in a lot of my videos, I like black shirts. So if I see, a shirt that comes in black, there's a good chance that I might want to buy it. Okay, so let's go and grab the actual swatches over here. It's a pretty simple process. Okay, so there you go. I dragged it in there, and the last thing that we want to do is include this over here, which is basically like just a little design accent. So all we're going to do is click L. So you know what? We can create it by doing a rectangle. So I'm going to do that. All I did was click R. I'm going to change the color to this, and then I'll make it a little bit shorter or a little bit not as wide. And that looks fine. Let's go ahead and include it in the email over here. There you go. Next, I'm going to just fix up the spacing a bit. It doesn't look right. And we can start working on the image. So this image over here, I'll just drag and drop it in there. Next, we have the actual copy on the image over here. So let me go ahead and grab that. We have a little icon like this. If you don't know where to find these icons, a great place to check is Flaticon, a bunch of free icons that you can use on that website. Highly recommend you check it out. So I already have it saved. Let's go ahead and include it here. And there you go. Now we need to include the little line at the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line. There you go. Okay, wait, let me fix the spacing a bit. Okay, another button. Once again, very straightforward. We already showed you how to make it before. I'm just going to clone it. Black. There you go. Now for the final section of this email, what you would basically do, I'm going to give a brief rundown, is you'd go into a background remover platform like Canva Pro. It has a feature for it, or remove.bg, another great tool. And you'd basically just insert this image and then click remove background and then upload it like this. So as you can see, it looks pretty cool without a background on the image. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to copy this bottom part over, and that is basically the email for you. Now I'm just going to close the bottom of the email and we're done. So there is the email. We did that pretty fast. Great. So now you know the basic workflow for creating a high converting email. Now let's look at the actual specific sections inside a high converting email. This is going to be very important that you get right, because if you do, building high converting layouts is very important, because if you do, it's going to make driving a lot more revenue, very efficient and easy for you. If you're not going to do these things, it's going to be like playing at a disadvantage when sending out your email campaigns. First things first, we'll start off with the most important part of your email, and that's going to be, bar none, your hero section. So your hero section, in other words, your email banner, is going to be what you see when you open up your email without scrolling. In other words, this is often referred to as what is above the fold. What is above the fold, which is your banner, is the most important part of your email by far, because it's guaranteed to be seen by everyone who opens your email. Just think of this. If 10,000 people open your email, everyone is going to see exactly what you see on screen as soon as you open it, compared to maybe a couple thousand people are going to get all the way to the bottom of your email and see what's there. So if you're saving the most important part of your email for the bottom of the email, you're literally playing at a disadvantage, because fewer people are realistically going to scroll 3 or 4 times all the way to the bottom of the email. Realistically speaking, even if your email is perfect, not everyone is going to scroll to the bottom. That's why majority of your effort for your email should be put above the fold. So what are you actually going to show above the fold in your email to make it effective? Number one, you got to choose a banner image. So you definitely want your banner image to reflect the email that you're sending right now. For example, if you're a women's clothing brand and you are sending an email about white dresses for summer, you better make sure that that banner image has a woman in a white dress. You want someone who sees the image to quickly clue in what you're emailing them about. When the reader sees a woman in a white dress, they're going to clue in that your email might be about dresses. To work alongside the banner image, you also want a strong headline. Your headline is most effective when it's clear, direct, it's not ambiguous, and it reflects what your email is about. So you might come up with something like the white dress edit. Once again, when someone opens this email, it's going to be very clear to them that your email is about white dresses. Then you can have a pre-header or a subheader that actually builds upon what you said in your header. It can provide a little bit more context, or it could even sell the benefit that you're saying in your header. For example, to go with the header that we chose, that was the white dress edit, you might use a pre-header that says summers must have look. This now provides context for the readers that we know it's about white dresses, we're selling them for summer, and then the background image is once again reinforcing the white dresses. You want your logo at the top of the email so it's easily distinguishable for the reader that it's your email. Last, arguably one of the most important parts of your email banner is going to be your button. So you definitely want your CTA to be in the banner and definitely above the fold. And the reason for this is because most of the clicks in the email will come towards the top. Around 70% or more of the clicks will come from the button in your banner. So if you're prioritizing making sure that you have a button in every email banner you send out, you're going to have a higher click rate. Not only do you want a button, you also want it to be contrasting with a different color than the rest of your email. Number 2, you want it to be bigger and slightly bold. And number 3, just make it short, clear, and direct. Shop now buttons are fine. So here's a look at the example banner that we just made. You can see everything in the email is congruent and aligned. If someone sees the banner of this email, they're going to quickly understand what the email is about. If you remember what we spoke about just a few minutes ago, you want your emails to be clear, scannable, and also be aesthetic. And I think these 3 things are hit on in this example right here. Next, you want some sort of bridge or body copy section, however you want to call it. So the purpose of this is just to build on a little bit more context for the rest of the email. Now I see a lot of brands once again making this mistake where they have way too much body copy and no one reads it. Instead, I want you to focus on having just 1 to maybe 2 short sentences of body copy and leaving it at that. This is going to be just enough to the point where readers are actually going to read it because it's not exhausting mental bandwidth for them reading an email. So you can go ahead and write some copy for your body text in the actual email, and it should just provide a little bit more context for what your email is about and play on the big idea. Now we're on section number 3. This is the meat and potatoes of the actual email, your email body. And there are endless possibilities for what you can do here. You might include products, product categories, reviews, infographics. You might have long form copy if you really wanted to, a GIF linking to a YouTube video, a GIF linking to an Instagram video, a collage, a GIF to an Instagram reel, or even a comparison table. In this section of the email, this is going to be where you get your customer to buy. So with the fashion company example that we're looking at right now, what better way to get the customer to buy than to actually show them some of the products? Now, showcasing the products isn't always the best way to sell, but for the example of the fashion industry, your best bet is likely going to be showing the actual products, how they look on the models, and selling the aesthetic that the brand portrays. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. Quick note, when you're building the body of your email, you want it to look more like this. You see how the second email is a lot shorter? That's a lot more optimized for conversions. We just generally have seen shorter emails perform better than longer ones like this. So in terms of length and dimensions of your actual email, I recommend to keep it ideally around 2000 to 2500 pixels. And finally, the last part of your email is going to be the footer. Your footers are going to be a global block, meaning once you set them up, they're going to be the exact same in every single email you send out. So I would recommend making it as good as possible when you design it. There are so many different ways you can do your email footer, but here are some things that I would personally recommend. Number 1, at the top of your footer, try to include what I call internally as the purchasing info block. So what this means is just a simple short banner with 3 icons and 3 corresponding subheaders beneath them, just outlining basic purchasing information. Things I love to include are if there's free shipping available, how long does shipping take, does the brand have a good warranty, what is the brand's review rating, how many 5-star reviews does the brand have. Here's a list on screen of other things that you can put in your purchasing info block, and they all work. The idea behind this is that if someone gets to the bottom of your email, they probably are somewhat interested in your brand, and if they have some level of interest, try to at least give them some benefits of your brand. Do you have 20,000 5-star reviews? If you do, it's a lot more enticing for someone to buy. Do you have free 2-day shipping? If so, people love that. Try to keep these things in mind when you're building your footer. Another thing you can do is incorporate some basic links. The most basic one you can do is your social links. So for example, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. The links that I like to feature more are the links located in the nav bar of your website. For example, we're on the Nike website right now. You can see that the 4 that they have are new and featured, men, women, and kids. This is going to make it very easy for the customer to shop their specific category that they like, and it's kind of proven to work. Otherwise, all these big brands wouldn't put it at the top of their website either as general categories. Moving on, we can't forget about the key component of a footer block, and that's going to be your unsubscribe button. So as the name suggests, this is how people unsubscribe from your emails. I see a lot of people trying to do some black hat things with this, like making the background color of the email the same color colors of text, making the text really small so you can't see it, so you can't unsubscribe. Don't do this. Just make it easy for your customers to unsubscribe. If they want to unsubscribe, they're going to do it anyways, regardless if you make it small or big. So just make it easy for them. Chances are, if someone's trying to unsubscribe anyways, they aren't going to buy from you. So who even cares? It's better to get those people off your list and just send to the only people that actually will buy. But you can save some people from unsubscribing if you implement what we call a manage preferences page. This allows people to either reduce the number of emails that they're receiving from you, or to only receive certain types of emails, or whatever kind of preferences your brand chooses to offer them. Once implemented, it's going to give your customers more options, and it likely will reduce your unsubscribe rate. Another cool thing you can implement in your footers is something like this or like this. It's basically just a text to subscribe to SMS block. So when someone texts that number, they can subscribe to SMS and perhaps even get a discount if you choose. I love doing this for 3 reasons. Number 1, SMS subscribers are extremely valuable, and this is just an automated way of doing that. Number 2, it's so easy to set up. Literally, it doesn't take you much more time including this when you're creating your footer, and it's going to generate you a bunch of new leads for SMS and a bunch of new revenue. And number 3, it's going to help your customers actually make a purchase. If I'm a customer and I'm more price conscious, and I'm scrolling to the end of your email and see a discount, I might be more inclined to go ahead and make a purchase if I'm interested in the products. And that's it. That's going to be the different sections in the email. Now let's move on to the next part of this course. There's one more thing that we haven't talked about yet that you absolutely cannot forget when designing your emails. And that is the device that 70% of your email list is going to be opening your emails on, and that is their phones. It is super crucial that every time you design your emails, you're optimizing them for mobile. It means that when you actually design the email, you want to focus on designing it for phones and not necessarily for desktops. So there's a few specific things that we can do to optimize for mobile so your emails are most accessible for majority of your email list. Number 1 is going to be focusing on one column layouts. So what do I mean by this? Let's say you're showcasing products in an email. Instead of showcasing 3 products, for example, side by side, try showcasing them one over the other in a vertical format. This is going to make it very easy for your reader to actually see the intricate details on your product and actually read the description of the product below it. You also want to be using very tab-friendly buttons. So instead of using very small buttons that would make it difficult to click, try to make them big and very easy for the customer to think, okay, I can click this and go to the website. Next, you want to optimize your text sizes. So for example, let's just take the body copy in your email. Since people are reading it on their phones, a very small device, you want them to be a little bit bigger. So in Figma, for example, we typically shoot for around an 18 to 20 size font for our brands. This is going to be the perfect size for people to actually read it on their phones without squinting or just realizing that it's too small, so it's not even worth reading. You also may want to have a 600 width design. It's going to make it perfect for your phones. Once again, because phones are smaller devices, the importance of spacing and readability is going to be key here. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, line breaks are amazing. You should include a line break at the end of every sentence in your body text paragraph, just as you would as if you were sending an email to a colleague. You also want to have smaller image file sizes in your emails, so when a customer opens the email, it loads very quickly for them. Oftentimes, if you're sending an email during the day, people are going to be at work, they might be out on the weekends, or doing something not at their own house, meaning they might be using some poor Wi-Fi or their own data. This is generally a recipe for slower loading emails, especially if you have big file sizes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look at this email over here on my phone. I'm in a spot right now where I'm on poor data, and you can see how long it takes for the actual email banner to load because it's a heavy file size. You don't want this happening to your customers. You want them to load fast so everyone gets to see the entire email. If, for instance, this actually happens to your customers, what do people do? They get impatient and they click off. They're not going to buy. Since we're talking about mobile now, you need to be cognizant that a lot of phones will have a dark mode feature enabled. It's estimated that about 50% of people actually have dark mode enabled. This is especially true on iPhones. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, dark mode is basically just the default color for the backgrounds on your phone screen, which is going to be like a very dark gray, almost a black, instead of a light white. Phones have introduced this because it's easier on the eyes, especially late at night, and also because a lot of people think this is more aesthetic. The reason why I'm bringing up dark mode is because it actually changes the background color of your emails too. So for example, if you're using HTML like the email up on screen, you can see that the actual background of the email has changed because you have dark mode on. So it's a little difficult to finagle this because dark mode naturally inverts the colors on your phone screen, and every phone adapts to dark mode in a different way. That means my email might look different than yours if you're using HTML. This is another reason why we prefer to use image slices for most of our emails, because images don't get changed in dark mode. If you're going to use HTML, I highly recommend using it in places that won't really be affected too much by the actual email. If you're going to use dark mode, I would prefer to use it in the sections of the email that won't be as affected by inverted colors. For example, the body text is a great way to incorporate some HTML without it looking crazy. And finally, if you're optimizing for mobile, which you should, you definitely need to be preview sending these emails, as you should with anything before sending it live. So make sure you're looking at it on your own phone before you put the campaign live. If anything looks funny or it stacks funny, just go ahead and revert it. Just make sure you're actually doing that preview test. It has saved me numerous times. So once again, just as a quick recap, we'll throw the 7 ways you can optimize your emails for mobile up on screen right here. So you can go ahead and screenshot this and use it for later. Now let's shift gears from looking at mobile design principles and focus on something that mobile and desktop emails can both benefit from, and that's graphic design fundamentals. So in this section, I'm going to cover 3 things: typography, color theory, and visual hierarchy. First, let's start off with typography. If you don't know what it means, typography is the style and appearance of your text. In email design, good typography makes your message stand out, feel professional, and also is easy to read. So the first thing you want to do with your typography is to only use a limited number of fonts. My personal choice is to use no more or no less than 2 fonts per email. It's also going to help if you have 2 fonts that are complementary with one another. Here's some examples up on screen. My personal choice is to use a serif font with the sans serif font. It's just going to make the combination look a lot better. And one more tip, you definitely do not want to use any script font. It's way too hard to read. With your fonts, you want them to actually grab your customer's attention and guide your customer's eyes throughout the rest of the email. We're going to go into this in more depth in literally the next section called visual hierarchy, but just for the sake of talking about typography, let's look at it briefly here. So when you're displaying your copy in your email, you want to make it very easy for your customer to naturally guide themselves throughout the course of the email. So here's an example if we only use one font and only one font size. See how if you read the header, it's just a little convoluted. You don't understand like what's more important than the other, what the main focus is. Next, compare it with this. The pre-header is a different size from the header. It's also a different font, so you can see what might be more important, what to look at first. I presume your eyes probably looked at the header font first, and then the pre-header font, then the text beneath the header, and then the body copy. This is the concept of visual hierarchy we're going to be going into in just a second, but it also applies to fonts. You want your reader to kind of read the most important stuff first. So there are several ways to do this. My personal favorite is to change the size of the font, also changing the actual font itself. You can also play with the spacing of the font. So the actual kerning, for example, eyebrow headers, you can play with the boldness of the font, and then also you can italicize it or not italicize it. To summarize, this example is a lot harder to read and kind of navigate yourself, rather than this example where your eyes naturally move throughout the course of the email just based on the way you displayed your fonts. Next, we want to look at the concept of web-safe fonts versus custom fonts. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, the gist of it is that not all fonts will work in your emails. Some classic fonts like Arial or Helvetica will work in anyone's email inbox, no matter what email provider they're using, whether it be Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, or anything else. On the other hand, custom fonts might not appear in everyone's inbox because most email providers like Gmail, Yahoo, or Outlook will not support them. Instead, they get replaced with what we call a fallback font. A fallback font are usually web-safe fonts because they're actually supported by your inbox provider, meaning it's a custom font and not a web-safe font. So when we use Montserrat, you'll notice that we have to choose a fallback font. And when we actually preview send this email to ourselves in Klaviyo, you'll see that the font that we receive in our inbox is not Montserrat. To show you what I mean, let's illustrate this with an example. Here's us building an email in Klaviyo using a custom font called Montserrat, which is one of the most popular fonts in e-commerce. It's a very basic one. You can see that the actual email font looks different. This is because the custom font Montserrat is not supported by my inbox provider, Gmail. Instead, the font changes to a fallback font, which is the font that's displayed on screen. Moral of the story, if you're using HTML to display any sort of text in your emails, make sure you're using some sort of web-safe font. Otherwise, it's going to divert to looking something like this, which isn't what you intended. Now, what if the font that you use isn't actually a web-safe font? I've run into this problem before. Many of our brands don't actually use web-safe fonts. So what you want to do is choose something as close as possible as your brand's font. Chances are you can find something that's relatively similar and go ahead and use that. You can have the best copy in your email. You can have the best looking font, but if someone can't read it, the email's no good. And a large part of readability is actually the line spacing in your emails. So making sure your line spacing is at least 1.4 to 1.6 is definitely going to help, and also using as many line breaks as you possibly can. Another thing that's just as crucial for readability as line spacing is your letter spacing. Letter spacing is also known as kerning, and making sure that your kerning isn't too tight like this example on screen is going to be crucial because I can't read this. Instead, you want to space it out a bit more so it looks something more like this. Another super important thing to keep in mind is your actual color contrast, as you want to remain compliant. What's always the safest is to have dark text on a light background, as it's super easy to read and very accessible for most of your audience. When you start tampering with light text on a dark background, it's a little harder to read. It can get even more tricky when you're using different colored fonts on like different colored backgrounds. For example, if you have some sort of image and you use like a blue font, it's going to be really weird and it may not actually be compliant, which is the big thing here. So to check this, you can use a simple color contrast checker online. For example, Stark is a good one. You can go ahead and try. Another thing I would like to mention is you can actually play with the types of fonts that you're using. So a lot of our brands have taken inspiration for their fonts from other brands that they aspire to be like. I'm sure you have this too, where you have a few brands in mind that you subscribe to their emails and think, oh, I like these designs a lot. Maybe their font's really nice. Maybe we can use something like this. It happens to all of us. In this case, maybe it gives you some inspiration for using different typography in your emails. If you do this though, make sure it's the same font on your website, because you do want to have a cohesive feel with your brand. If you want some examples of some of the most recognizable fonts out there, here are some. For example, Apple uses SF Pro, which is very similar to like a Helvetica. For me, this is one of my favorite fonts of all time. I just think it looks so clean. Apple does the best job. Nike will typically use Futura for their headlines and a sans serif for their body. Airbnb uses a pretty cool font. It's called Circular, very similar to other popular fonts like Montserrat or Poppins. If you're a luxury brand, you might want to opt for a higher contrast serif font like Gucci or Prada might do. Some examples of ones that I really like are Playfair Display, one that we actively use for some of our brands. If you're a tech brand like Notion or Stripe, for example, you might want to go with a more modern sans serif font like Inter, for example. So that just about wraps up our graphic design fundamentals. Let's now move on to one of everyone's favorites, the GIF section. People absolutely love GIFs because they're interesting, they're engaging, they're fun, and brands love it because it increases conversions. But you can't just throw them into your emails and pray that they'll do better. You actually need to make sure that you're doing it properly. First things first, let's actually look at why GIFs are important in the first place. Number one, it should give you an engagement boost. If you're including GIFs, especially in the banner of your emails, you're going to encourage a lot more people to click and go to your website. Number two, it'll actually stop your customer from scrolling and they'll actually look at your email and see what you're talking about. Just think of it. When you see a GIF in an email or any advertisement, you typically actually watch the entire GIF to see what it's showing you. That's the exact same thing in your emails. So if you have a GIF at the top of your email, people will actually wait to see the entire thing. This gives them a second to stop and analyze what you're selling them, and then they can decide if they want to click to the website or if they don't. Number three, memorability. The more GIFs that you include in your emails, the less of a chance that people will just see it and then swipe by and onto the next brand's email, because most brands don't include GIFs like this, so you have a real chance to stand out with them. So without further ado, let's look at some of the best practices for GIFs so you can make sure that you're implementing them properly. Number one, arguably the most important, is to keep your GIFs under preferably 1 megabyte. Now I know this is still a quite heavy file size, but there's only so much you can do when you have a GIF. It's not like an image where you can continuously resize it to the point where it's around 100 to 200 kilobytes. GIFs are naturally going to be a lot heavier, so their file size will be larger. To prevent your GIF file size from being too large, make sure that you're only using about 3 frames per GIF. So as an example of what I'm talking about, here's one up on screen now. Do you see how this GIF only rotates through 3 different pictures? That's optimal because if you start including more pictures, it's just going to increase the file size of your GIF. The next thing I want to talk about kind of goes without saying, but you want to make sure that your images are actually visible in your GIF. When you put a GIF together, your image quality is going to decrease. So you only want it to decrease just a bit. And if it gets to the point where it's something like this, where the image quality is just flat out terrible, obviously don't use that. And the last best practice I want to touch on for GIFs is to make sure that you're compressing the file size after you create your GIF. So a really easy way to do this is to go in easygif.com down to the optimize section, and then you can select the quality that you want. Just make sure, once again, it's actually visible and you can see what's on the screen. Okay, cool. So now you know the best practices for GIFs. Now you need to know where you can actually use them. My personal favorite is in the hero section of your email. Once again, going back to one of the earlier parts of this video, the hero section is by far the most important part of your email. It's where most of the clicks actually occur and where most people are going to see your email, because once again, not everyone's going to scroll to the very bottom, but everyone's going to see the very top of your email. There's a couple different types of GIFs you can do here. For example, a carousel like the one on screen, or for example, a moving background like this one over here. Another great place to do a GIF is with the CTAs. This is something that we don't do too often, but if done correctly, it does look pretty good and it can increase your click rate. Another really great way I love to use GIFs is to actually include a reviews GIF block. So instead of having, let's say, 3 sections for 3 different reviews, you would just have one review GIF block and it would rotate between 3 different reviews every 5 seconds or so. This is awesome because it saves so much space in your email, and we all know that shorter emails perform better than longer emails. So this will help. Another awesome way I love to use GIFs is something like this. We're actually walking through a step-by-step process, and it's very easy for the customer just at the beginning of the email to see the steps that they need to take. Finally, another really cool way or part of the email you can showcase GIFs is with some sort of icons or different effects. For example, if your brand is a lot more playful and you're sending an email during the fall, you might have some falling leaves or snowflakes or something like that. You can include a stripe banner in your emails like this at the top of your email, or like this one in the middle of your email that would just scroll and showcase an offer. This is great for sale campaigns especially, or welcome emails, because you're putting a lot of attention on the offer so people can go ahead and redeem it. If you want to kind of kick it up a notch and go a little bit more creative, here are 3 different types of GIFs that we typically implement and our brands love it. Number 1, it's going to be a carousel. So this basically looks like this. It's very easy to implement and it's really great, especially in the banners of your emails. And some of the most frequent ways that we do this is just showcasing, for example, some UGC or customers inside the actual GIF. And it works great for some social proof emails or anything like that. Another big one is color swapping. So for example, if you're a men's clothing brand and you are selling quarter zip sweaters, you can have one lifestyle picture of the actual sweater and then 3 ghost images rotating between different colors of the sweater. So people who are viewing it can see, okay, this comes in multiple colors. As I'm stressing the importance of using GIFs, I also want to showcase when you shouldn't be using GIFs. So for the first scenario, when I would not use GIFs is if you have a super important or critical email, I probably wouldn't use it. This is because if you're using a GIF, especially in your banner, it's going to be so slow to load. If someone's out of the house, like I mentioned before, and they're on slow data or slow Wi-Fi, it might not actually appear in their inbox. So they might be missing half of the email. And if that's going to be your best shot at maximizing sales, it's not going to be that good. We all know GIFs are more engaging than reading a long paragraph. So you're just going to divert their attention. Another example where I wouldn't use a GIF is if you're trying to convey a long form message to your audience. For example, if you're a founder and you're writing a plain text email showcasing something important that has happened for the brand, I wouldn't really showcase a GIF because it's going to divert their attention away from the actual message to look at the GIF, which is much more engaging. Another scenario where I wouldn't use GIFs is if you're already using one in an email. So for example, if I'm sending an email campaign and I have a GIF in the banner, probably not going to use a GIF in the body of the email because 1, it's going to reduce the load time for the email, just going to be too long. And number 2, it's just too distracting. Like you'll have way too much stuff going on. So that just about wraps it up for GIFs. Now, the last thing I want to share for your GIF section is to include some sort of split test. So you can split test a GIF versus no GIF in the exact same email and see if you have an increase in clicks on that actual section in the email. This is a great way to see if your GIFs are effective and if they're worth it for your brand. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there has been some trends in email design that you might want to pay attention to. One of them is incorporating more AI into your design. Now, I'm not talking about ChatGPT for a moment. I'm talking about AI generated designs. Now, for example, if you're a brand that uses lifestyle images, you can use AI to slightly tweak the image. Let me just give you a for instance. Take this image that we use for one of my clients' brands. It's just a regular lifestyle photo. Now, we wanted to use this for a winter focused email. So all we did was throw it into an AI software and then we got this. Now, if you ask me, this looks pretty good and the image suits the email a lot better. And now we're able to send out a winter focused email. Here's another image that we swapped in the exact same email for an AI generated version of that same image. This is one of my favorite ways to use AI in designs. Another great AI tool that you can use is something like Upscale. Upscale is a software that, as the name suggests, lets you upscale an image. So for example, if you have a regular image and the quality isn't the best, take this low res image as an example. Now we can import that image into a software like Upscale and actually have a much higher res image. This is great when you have a really nice image that you want to use, but the quality of the image is just hindering your ability to use it. The next really cool thing you can do with AI is actually creating images. So for instance, this image over here and this one are all made with AI. These images were used to sell a brand's product, which they did very successfully, not even taking a proper photo shoot for. If you look at them closely, you'll probably be able to tell that they're AI, but you're gonna fool most people with it. And it's pretty good for something that a computer generated. Now, this is what it looks like today. So imagine what the technology will be like in 2, 3 years, or even 5 years from now. Moving on to another more practical way to use AI in your email designs. For us and a lot of our clients, we love to use lifestyle images. And sometimes you have a really great photo, but you just can't use it for like an email banner, for example, because it might not be big enough or it might not be fit to scale, that is when you can use AI to expand the image and fill the space that you need. I cannot tell you how many times we do this on a weekly basis. It has helped us out tremendously. For example, let's take a look at this email over here. We want to use this image as the banner of the email, but the image isn't long enough for it to have enough space at the top to fill the email banner. So what we can do is throw the image in a tool like firefly.ai. And once we do, we can get AI to generate the rest of the image. So now when we upload it, it's going to look a lot better. Hopefully, I'm kind of painting the picture about some stuff that you can use with AI in your emails. Another really cool thing with AI that you can do is color correcting. So for example, if you only have one mannequin image like this, you can go ahead and throw it in AI and it's going to generate the exact colors that you need for your website. In summary, AI is a great tool to actually make your emails a lot better and do it in a much more efficient fashion. Moving on to the next trend in email design, it's going to be interactive elements and, like we discussed before, GIFs. So incorporating interactive elements, GIFs, or anything creative for that matter into your emails has become a much more popular trend in 2025 and beyond. The reason being is because so many brands are doing email marketing these days, and it's just an easy way to actually stand out. So here are some really cool GIFs or interactive elements that I found in email designs that you can use as inspiration. Now, I won't go into this in too much detail because once again, we reviewed this in a different section earlier, but the key takeaway here is that if you incorporate GIFs in your email designs, it's likely going to improve your engagement rate, and a lot more brands are putting more emphasis on it today. Okay, so now that just about wraps up our email design. Now, before we end off here, I just want to give you a quick bonus of how I actually get my email designs. The best way to get inspiration for your emails is undoubtedly just to look at other emails. If you need a good place to find other emails, look no further than these 3 websites. Number 1, Mild. On Mild, you can find basically any brand's email and all their emails from the past month, even the past year. And if you pay, you can get the brand's emails from like maybe even 10 years ago. This is great because what I'll personally do is follow some of my favorite brands and just browse through their emails every week and see if we can use any inspiration for some of our clients. If you need some help getting started with inspiration, here's a bunch of brands that I personally love. We'll throw them up on screen here and you can go ahead and look at these. All of them have great email designs, great layouts, and I can definitely tell you they're going to convert very well. If you went through Milds and you like what you see, I would definitely recommend checking out mailcharts.com, another fantastic resource for more email designs. And if you're looking for more aesthetic emails, one of the websites that I also like is reallygoodemails.com. A lot of great resources here too. And while these websites are amazing for inspiration, you'll still need to go and put in some legwork to find the emails that you like. And to save you that time, my team and I have put together a 1000 email swipe file that you can go ahead and use for unlimited email inspiration. This swipe file is going to have literally everything you're going to need. All sorts of campaigns broken up by different campaign categories, different flow email inspirations. It even shows email designs for different categories. For example, supplements, sports, clothing, anything else you can think of. If you'd like to get your hands on it and improve your design quality as soon as possible, it is 100% completely free. Just go ahead and claim it so you can improve your email designs ASAP, so you can go ahead and use it. I'd be a liar if I said that email design is the only thing you need to succeed with email marketing. All of it would go to waste if you don't consider this one important aspect, and that's your brand's email deliverability. The reason is you can be designing the highest converting, best looking emails, but if they're landing in your customer spam box, your customers will never see them. So that's why you should check out this video over here, where I break down everything you can possibly need to know about your email deliverability so you can maximize the effectiveness of your email marketing channel. So if you combine amazing email design with amazing deliverability, you're sure to set yourself up for success with email marketing in 2025. I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you in the next one.